Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And today I'm actually in a different location for my this and that video, which is going to be one of the things I talk about for the this and that. And so one of the reasons why I'm in here, besides the fact that I just like shooting in here, I love this counter and all this stuff, and I like being in a different place besides the kitchen. My light, this is the light that we use overhead. This is just this simple little halogen light is what I use for my overhead light in my kitchen. And Pat had hooked it up, and it's been up there for well over a year now. And I have managed to make it do all this time. And yet today, because the cord, this cord here, the power cord, goes across one of my cabinet doors, and I'm constantly opening that door and closing it, opening and closing it, opening and closing it. I wondered if this was going to happen one day, and sure enough, today it came crashing down. Thankfully, the way the light landed, it didn't break it. It landed on the counter, and thankfully, this was my biggest fear, was it was going to land on my head when it did happen. It just missed me. So I am going to wait for Patrick to rig the light up for me again before I shoot any more videos in the kitchen, because I look at my older videos and they're so dark because I was just relying on the simple lights that we have in there, and whatever light can come into that through the window, and it's just not enough. Whenever you're shooting videos, you really have to have extra lighting, more than what you would think, just to get it to look normal. Otherwise it looks really dark. So I don't want to shoot any more videos in there until I get my light set up. Now, that's not the only light I use. I have another light just like this that Patrick also put onto a post. It's a big heavy thing that's kind of hard to move around. I'll put a picture of it right here. And it's the same kind of light. And so that one I just drag it around. I actually have that big heavy thing. It's the base of it that's super heavy. It's sitting on a folded up crocheted rug I'd made years ago, and so that it makes it easier for me to slide it back and forth from the foyer where I typically leave it there, and then into the kitchen when I need it. But I have to put it back because I can't keep that one in the kitchen because it's always in my way. Not that I always like this ugly thing hanging from my kitchen ceiling, but it's one of those things you kind of get used to seeing because it's always there. And yeah. So anyway, some people have asked, I thought it was a good idea to bring it up because some people have asked, well, what kind of lighting do you use? Well, that's it. Patrick happened to have a couple of these snap-on lights. I'll go ahead and put a link to it below, but I know they were purchased at Costco. So my son bought him one, and he liked it so much he went and got himself another one. And now he doesn't use them in the shop because they're always used for recording videos. And he's used it before too, the one on the post, because the nice thing about that is we can take that and just kind of put it anywhere we need it. And sometimes we'll take it, if on those rare occasions we like to shoot a chat video in the living room, we'll take it and set it up in there. Otherwise it would be really way too dark for us to shoot videos in there, because our living room can be pretty dark at certain times of the day. But anyway, let's move on, and I'll talk about a few other things. Now, I recently just published a video on this room that I'm standing in. So this is our rec room, our multi-purpose room. This was my former dance and martial arts room. And if you haven't checked that video out, if you haven't seen it yet, I'll go ahead and link to it right up here. I do a pretty thorough tour. But I missed a couple of things, and I don't know if they show up in the video. I haven't looked, but one of them is my grain mill is sitting over there. Over there is where our little entertainment center is set up, and the grain mill is actually sitting right next to it. So you might have caught a view of it, and I forgot to totally mention it. And then one more thing I want to show you. This is the thing right here. One of the things I forgot to show and explain in the video, and people might be wondering what it is if it happened to show up. I'm not sure that it did. And right now it has a bunch of decorative stuff on there that normally wouldn't be kept on there. But since this is right now not in use at this time, I just try to pretty it up a little bit. However, this thing is what's called a board holder for breaking boards for martial arts. And that's what these things are. These are re-breakable boards. The black ones like this are supposed to be equivalent to a just a 1-inch pine board. The nice thing about it is it really saves money on boards, you know, if you're doing martial arts. You know, the red ones are also supposed to be equivalent to a pine board, but they're typically easier to break than the black ones. But anyway, you just set the board up in here, and then you can put a series. So like when I had to get my black belt, I had to be able to break 4 pine boards with my foot to get my black belt in Taekwondo, and 2 pine boards with a hand strike. And I just used an elbow strike, which is really easy. But a single board, a single pine board, if you got it's a matter of skill. It's not so much a matter especially if you don't have mass, like I don't have the mass needed to go through that many boards. But it's about the skill of knowing how to, it helps you develop that right kind of power and precision to be able to hit in the direct spot. That's the only purpose I see of board breaking, and really practicing, learning how to just break a single board is the best thing to do. To start increasing it up from there is really kind of worthless. But there's a punch through a single board. So that would be, again, equivalent to a pine board. And then the other thing I did was I actually built this silly little thing. It's basically a jig to hold the different size boards, because for whatever reason when you go up to the black, it's longer, and Patrick originally made the board holder to hold the black boards and not the ones. The red and the black are pretty equivalent in strength but different in size. And then I have other colors. I have yellow and blue, so people who are just starting out, or kids, you know, typically you don't have kids break boards, but I'd let them practice kicks on the lighter weight boards, the yellow and the blue. But anyway, so that's what this is for, because, you know, so that I could put a couple, you know, 1, 2, even 3 of these red boards in here at a time, if I wanted to use those as opposed to the, or the yellow and blue, as opposed to the black boards. Here's the black one right here, and that fits in there perfect. And there's that. That did kind of hurt because my knuckles aren't as tough as they used to be, because I haven't done knuckle push-ups in forever, and I haven't been breaking boards in forever. So anyway, that's what this is, and Patrick built this for martial arts. Now, typically you have it so that you can adjust it up and down to adjust to different sizes, heights, and right now it's adjusted basically to my height for hand strikes, but also at the right height for I had some pretty tall boys in my class, and this was a good height for them for their kicks. And so I would have them, I had a couple of them that were, they would have been getting close to black belt level. They were my first cup, so they were my highest ranking students. And so I was having them practice quite a bit through 3 and 4 boards at a time in this thing of the black boards. And so this is funny, this is how short I am. So this is good for a hand strike for me. I'm standing straight up, but for them, because when you're breaking through boards, you want to be at a 90-degree angle with your leg. You don't want to be breaking, you know, pointing up. So for me, this would be way too high to break a board, you know, because I'd have to be pointing my leg up. But anyway, yeah, this would be about the right height for them to kick through. So that just kind of tells you how short I am and how tall they were. They were really tall. So anyway, back to my other stuff. So I had a video go out several weeks ago about what to do with fabric scraps, and people came in with loads and loads of ideas. A lot of more ideas of things that I already do, and some, but reminded me of several of the things I forgot to mention in the video. It's like I should have thought it through more, but I'm always using fabric scraps for things, so I don't always remember everything I have. But I also got a lot of new ideas in there that I might do eventually down the road, so we'll see. But one of the things that Mary brought up was making rice packs or bean packs or whatever. So, you know, this is a hot cold pack. And yes, I actually have made 3 of these. I even have a video out. In that video, I'll go ahead and link to right up here. That one, I was making the rice packs as a special order. So the fabrics and the way I was making them is a little different than what I like to make for ourselves. But I made a huge one, and then I made a couple of smaller ones. In the sizes that she wanted. But this size right here is the size that we like best. And this is it's about 10 inches. It's square. And so what I have here is I used one scrap fabric for making the bag itself, and then stitched it closed really good. And I think in these ones I did put some essential oils, and they've been well used, and some flaxseed, and then made another separate one, basically like a little pillowcase to go over it, so that we only use it with the case on it. And that way I can, because you don't want to throw the rice pack in the wash as is. This way I can take the little cover off and wash it at any time. And I have 3 of these for sure, maybe 4. And I keep one in the freezer at all times if we need a cold pack, but mostly we use the heat pack. And, typically, like if Patrick hurts his back, I'll heat this up, though I'll switch back and forth from the cold pack to the heat pack. And, but in the wintertime, this is also really nice to heat up. This is one thing a microwave is great for. A lot of people get rid of their microwaves because it's like, well, you don't want to microwave your food, because yeah, it's not a good idea to microwave your food. However, one thing that we use our microwave for is heating up rice packs. It works better than anything because there's something about the way it works. It holds the heat better for a longer period of time. So we would heat these up in the wintertime, and we'll, when it's really cold in the bedroom, and just put them at the foot of the bed. And, because once your feet are warm, the rest of your body is warm. But anyway, so one really good thing you can do with your hot pack. But yeah, I find this size to be just my favorite size of all. I've made bigger ones, and I just don't like them as much. They take longer to heat up. This one heats up pretty quickly, and it just it's pretty multi-purpose. I can use it pretty much anywhere. I use it at the back of my neck, you use it on lower backs, use it on upper backs, you use it on, ankles, wrists, whatever. So mostly though, for me, I'm not hurting myself now as much as I used to when I was teaching dance and martial arts, so I rarely need it for anything. And then another fabric scrap thing that I have a video on this as well is I made little seed packs or seed bags. These are specifically for bean, corn, and peas. And I really wanted to put them in cotton bags because, I don't want to use envelopes for those because they're kind of big and round. And but using it for the corn, which is I got my glass gem corn in here. That's why I chose a multicolored fabric, because the corn is multicolored. And this one is for my runner beans because they're mostly kind of a dark orange, reddish orange. But I have got the sunset runner beans too, but they're in their peach color. And then these are for my purple potted pole beans. And this one here is for my snow peas. So I've got a lot in here. I saved a lot, and I didn't really plant that many this year. So I think I'm going to try cooking up some of those snow peas and see how they taste. Okay, so moving on. So there's a couple more ideas. It's just a little drawstring bag, and basically I just followed the same idea as my homemade tea bag, which is another thing I use fabric scraps for, is making tea bags, and I have a video on that I'll link to right here. And I'm probably already, that's probably 3 videos. So anyway, another thing that I've just got started was finally, now you remember in one of my this and that videos I talked about using freeze-dried fruit, and this is sour cherries, to make a fermentation starter. I did an experiment and it worked to get it going. I was, it was just to check and see if once it's been freeze-dried, is it still going to work well for a fermentation starter? And yes, it does. And so now, using the same kind of freeze-dried cherries, this is just started. This is going to get darker as it goes. I'm going to make a sour cherry soda. So to this, I put in about, it might be hard to see exactly, with the lid on. I put about this much of the freeze-dried fruit in there. So I filled it up about, maybe not even a cup in there. And then added the sugar, and I put in a 1/4 cup of sugar to this, because you're going to want to have some sugar, because it's going to, there's going to be some sugar in the fruit, but I'm not putting in a ton of fruit. And I don't want to put in too much because we'll see, I want to see how it turns out first. And then I topped it off with my filtered rainwater. You don't want to use tap water when you're fermenting anything because it has chloride, unless you can dechlorinate it. And even then I still don't recommend it because it typically has fluoride in it. I topped it off, I put in about a 1/4 cup, because you want a 1/4 cup of your fermentation starter per 1 quart jar of whatever you're trying to ferment. So anyway, I want to see how this turns out, and I'll do an update down the road and see if I need to add more fruit or not. Now, another thing going on today is, of course, and this is something I'm going to be doing a lot every week, dehydrating big batches of peppermint. I have a couple trays already in there on the dehydrator, and this is one of the trays here. And I got to thinking I wanted to talk about this. As it dawned on me this year that I mentioned in a previous video that using fresh peppermint for making tea is really good. Well, what I realized is when I started doing this last year, I was using peppermint later in the year after it had already started to flower. Now, once it starts flowering, you can still, some herbs, you know, they say, no, stop collecting them once it starts flowering. When you're talking mints, keep doing it because they get more strong at that point, way more strong. The flavor is so much more intense and it makes such an excellent tea. And I love a good, strong tasting tea, especially when it comes to peppermint. So this peppermint isn't to that point yet. Maybe by the time you see this video, it will be, because again, I'm like 3 to 4 weeks ahead of my videos. But anyway, so, you know, keep collecting it even after it flowers, because the flowers are edible and they have flavor too, but the flavor just gets more intense as it goes along. So just don't quit. Just keep taking that peppermint. If you're like me and you love peppermint tea, I mean, it's still my favorite for flavor, that or an orange spice. Oh, and then the other thing I wanted to say is that, you know, like I've got some kind of thick stems in here. And so when I get this all dehydrated up, let's say, you know, I'm trying to break it all up and put it in a jar. If I come across some stems that aren't fully dehydrated, a person has two options. You can just pull all the dry leaves off, put it back on the dehydrator, and then I usually just wait till the next day. And when I have something else to dehydrate with it on that same tray, because usually I just pile all the stems on one side and then maybe put some dandelion flowers, violas or whatever on the tray with it, and then dry them all together. Sometimes I'll do that, but another thing I'll do is just that night, what I do is just take whatever didn't fully dehydrate it. I did this with dandelion leaves last night, and you know, I had some stems that didn't fully dry, and so I just put them in my teapot and just made tea with them. So you can do that too, so you don't have to let them go to waste. You can either put them back on the tray and let them dry some more, or you can just make tea out of those directly. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to talk about was I emptied my last big jar or bottle, this is a liter bottle, of vanilla extract that I had made. And I'm going to be making some more. And what I use is I do have a couple more, actually this size, that have been brewing for, well, probably a couple years. So, I mean, they're done. But I'm getting kind of down to the point where it's time for me to make some more vanilla extract. And I do have a video on that. It's going to be an older one, so it's darker, but it's my favorite way to make it with the glycerin and the spiced rum. It really makes an amazing flavor for the vanilla extract. You've got the rum in there that's got its own unique flavor that's just so much better than the vodka. You know, it adds a flavor to it. And then you have the glycerin, which adds a natural sweetness that doesn't raise your glycemic levels. It's not that kind of sweetness. It would be more similar to stevia, because it's not gonna do that to you. So you can have glycerin as a diabetic and it won't bother you. But anyway, the glycerin adds a nice sweetness, so it just makes a wonderful flavor. However, I'm going to try a sample bottle of making some of the vanilla extract. I'm just going to do a sample. I don't want to do a big bottle like this, but I've got some raspberry mead here, but I also have my other homemade wine that I have a whole video series on. And I think if I link to this series, which I'll go ahead and do up here, that might be number 5. If I'm past number 5, I don't have it, and you don't see anything pop up here, look in the end cards. I'll make sure to add it to the end, you know, to the screen at the end. So anyway, I might try the raspberry mead, because this has a really nice flavor. And I want to just see how that turns out. I'll either do this or I'll use the blackberry wine that I made this year, and then do that in conjunction with the half and half like I did with the spiced rum, and use the glycerin in it and see how that turns out. But again, I just want to do a sample size because vanilla beans are so expensive, and I also don't want to you know, I'm sure it's going to turn out good either way. My question is how strong is it going to turn out really? But I think that either the raspberry, because this has a really nice flavor, as does my blackberry wine, I think either one of those will make a really great tasting vanilla extract. So, and the thing I like about that is this is pretty much free in comparison to buying the spiced rum. So if I like that and I like it better, that's probably how I'll be doing my vanilla extract from now on. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this and that video. It's a little different than my usual ones because I'm in a different location and got to talk about some different things than I normally would. But anyway, I hope you learned something new as well. Thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.